Well, greetings, dear friends. So good that we could spend another couple minutes together today. Just wanted to give you a little insight to Sunday's worship. We are on the third Sunday of Lent. This is in our readings, the third covenant in this year's Lenten reading is central one of kind of of Israel's history, right? The gifts of the law to those God freed from slavery. The commandment begins with the statement that because God alone has freed us from the power that oppressed us, we are to let nothing else claim first in our lives. And so as we continue this walk into Lent, as we continue to hear about God's grace and God's glory, about Jesus and his time in the wilderness, his ministry, we are going to look to readings from Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. You might know those as the Ten Commandments, obviously. Psalm 19, we'll read that psalm together. And our second lesson comes from 1 Corinthians 1, 18 to 25. And then our gospel is out of John 2, 13 through 22. This is where Jesus comes into the temple and overturns the change and goes through that story. And so a little bit on the focus about where the message is going to go. We hear this story, right, about Jesus coming into the temple, and he overturns this, and he has the image that we don't usually see is, Jesus fashions a whip and he overturns things, and he has some frustration. And so an emphasis that I kind of am going with is that he comes in and really says that is the Father's house, right? That what they're doing within there shouldn't be happening, because the focus should be on God, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what is the Father's house, and what are some things that we see ourselves, right? Because our text describes how Jesus and his disciples, they had come to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. Talks about then how in the midst of all of this, the priests and the tax collectors and everybody just starts cheating people, and even the priests were in on the action, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that scene looked like, right? And what some of those, some people may have been thinking, maybe what Jesus himself was thinking, and then really kind of focusing it back on what do we do in God's house? Have we come into God's house for a different purpose than what we're supposed to? Have we taken a step back and not treated God's house the way that Jesus says we should have treated God's house? One question is, are we guilty then of trampling the blood of Jesus? Right? And the emphasis, do we, when we receive communion, or when we hear the word, or all of these things, what then might we be just as guilty of as those tax collectors and those priests and all of them that were inside God's temple kind of cheating people, right? But in all of that, the words of this gospel text aren't all necessarily meant to scare us, because there is good. Because remember, Jesus says, destroy the temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. Nobody really could understand that, right? They thought that he was speaking about kind of the temple that King Herod had spent 46 years refurbishing, right? Which still was yet to be finished. But he was talking about him and his body and what that sign of grace really is. So that's kind of an emphasis on where the message is going to go. A little sneak preview, I guess, so to speak. As a reminder, we're swapping worship times this week. So Sundahl is at 9 a.m. and then Ottawa is at 11 because annual meeting is out at Ottawa after worship. So please remember that. They will both be on Facebook like normal. You're just going to see services in reverse order. But if you are going to worship in person with us, remember 9 o'clock at Sundahl and 11 at Ottawa. I hope you have a blessed weekend. I look forward to seeing you in worship. Take care. Bye for now.